What's going on? So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to start and scale a growth operating business, and the number one thing that is keeping most of y'all from actually being able to scale and go to that next level. There's always something in a business that is keeping you from going to the next level. And so if you are stuck right now, if you feel like you're working really hard, you're putting in long hours, you're doing a lot of quantity of work, and you're just not getting the output that you deserve, you're just kind of spinning your wheels in the mud, that's where this video is really going to help you, right? This video might have been sent to you by me. It's probably not going to go viral just because it's not going to. It's not a viral based video, but this video is not meant to go viral. It's meant to help out those people who are actually true fans and those people who are actual growth operators, or really any business, to really help you go to that next level. And so in this video, that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about, is the law of constraints. Roman came to me. He's one of our inner circle clients. He came to me and he had kind of this different mindset that I haven't seen from a lot of people, and I think it's very good, and I just kind of decided that I wanted to share it. And what I noticed when I talked to him is he said, like, I was like, okay, what do you want to offer? What do you want to do here? What do you want to do there? Like, what do you know about sales? What do you know about, the actual delivery process? And he's like, well, I don't really know that much, but I haven't acquired a client yet, so I haven't needed to know that info yet. Like, he shares the same mindset that I do of, like, the only thing low leverage is not making money. If you're not making money, that's a pretty damn low leverage task. And so that's where you really need to look at where you're actually focusing your time, right? I think that this is a raw truth that a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to face, right? Is YouTube actually worth it? That's a question that I've had in the past. It's a question that a lot of people have had in the past. Is a personal brand worth it? And I've come to the conclusion that I really do think that it is. I think it's a valuable asset long term. But also, is it really worth it right now? Like, what are those things that are really worth it right now? So that's kind of where I want to talk about the theory or the law of constraints. Basically, the law of constraints states that there's always some constraint keeping you from going to the next level. There's one thing that you should be doing that's high leverage, right? So on a day-to-day basis, there's probably like 2, maybe 3 things that you should actually be doing as a growth operator. Some of those things do not include scrolling social media. That's one thing that I see a lot. Laying around, like jacking off. Like, those are things that you shouldn't be doing if you really are serious about scrolling or about scaling a growth operating agency. And so that's kind of how the law of constraints works, right? There's always a constraint. And so the first step in scaling a online business is to identify the constraint. Constraints come down to 3 categories. There's skills, beliefs, and traits, right? So these are the 3 types of constraints. There's skills, beliefs, and traits. And so this is the one that's marketed to everybody as the actual constraint. Everybody thinks that they have a skill issue, right? If you buy courses, people typically market the skill issue. They say, oh, well, you don't know how to acquire a customer. You don't know how to deliver a service. You don't know how to run ads, so we're going to run them for you. That is how people sell things. That's how you should sell things, right? People think that they lack skill. 99% of the time, and I can tell you from certainty, I've spent $80,000 between me and my business partner last year in education alone, and I can tell you with 100% certainty that it's almost never skills, right? The constraint is 99% of the time comes down to beliefs and traits. So the best coaching programs, the best mentorships that I've joined into have touched in skills for sure. They've helped out with, how skills work. But the number one thing that I get from these high ticket mentorship programs are beliefs and traits. And so when Roman came to me, he said, like, bro, why would I be focused right now on delivery? Like, I need to be focused on acquisition. That's the constraint right now in my business. And so if you want to scale a business, there's a 2-step process. 1, identify the constraint. 2, get rid of the constraint, right? Skills is always the clickbaity thing that everybody thinks is the constraint. They say, okay, here's how to create a ads agency, or here's how you need ads. Here's, you need to run ads. You don't know how to run ads, so we'll run the ads for you. That's the clickbait thing. But the truth is, a lot of times it's the mindset that you actually have about it. Ads are not hard. Ads are very, very easy. In fact, we hired the number 1 paid ads agency in the world, and we got 200x better results than they did. So that's just kind of a reference as to, like, that you typically don't have a skill problem. You have a belief or traits problem. So one thing that I would say is if you really want to fix this and I want to identify, if you can't necessarily identify the constraint, there's kind of two ways to do this. One is to get an outside perspective, right? I live with my roommate. We were talking earlier today and we actually wrote it out on a whiteboard. We're like, okay, what are you actually doing in a day? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Okay, well, you're doing this, 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 this. He's like, yeah, I really want to get better at copywriting. I think it'll take me to the next level. And I'm like, okay, so how much money, if you hypothetically put in all your effort into copywriting, how much money could you make in an extra per month from this client that you're copywriting for? And then we determined that it wasn't really that much. It was a very, very light amount of money. And so what we determined is that that's not where he should be putting his focus. He shouldn't be putting his focus into copywriting. He should be putting his focus into acquisition. How can he acquire new clients for himself? Not how can he write better copy for his clients, but how can he acquire new clients? Because it just made more sense. A new acquisition is worth 3 to 5K to 10K, depending on how good you are at the growth operating game. It's worth a lot of money versus like if you're doing copywriting for a growth operating client that just isn't performing well right now, it's worth $200 a month, maybe. It's like I need that to pay off my Go High Level subscription times 2 or times 3. So it's like it doesn't make sense to focus on low leverage things. And so another thing that comes up a lot is people are doing tasks that they shouldn't be doing. Like if your hourly rate is $10 an hour, you really got to look at, okay, if I have a task that's a $2 an hour task, why am I doing it if my hourly rate's $10, right? If your hourly rate's $100, you shouldn't be doing anything less than like a $25 task. Typically, it's like 25% is the easiest way to do it in my mind. And if you want to know your hourly rate, by the way, it's pretty simple. You just want to take your total income over the year. So if you say, let's say you make 5K per month, take that over the year, multiply by 12. Let's just say you make 1K per month because it makes, or 2K per month because it makes the number easier. It's like, okay, now we have 2,400 a month. Then we divide it by 2K. So whatever number you get, if you're making $50,000 a year, divide it by 2K. So let's say you're making $200,000 a year, you divide it by 2K, your hourly rate is 200,000 divided by 2K. I'm not in the mood to do math right now. So that's how you determine your hourly rate, right? You got to really know your hourly rate and then know like, okay, is this task actually worth my time? Because if your hourly rate's $200 an hour, you shouldn't be doing any task less than $50 an hour. And that's 25% of your hourly rate. Any of those tasks should be outsourced. And so that's where I think it's important to start looking at like what tasks really suck your time. And are those tasks that are really sucking your time actually bringing you value on the back end? If not, you got to cut them out. You got to get rid of them. So super, super important. Find what tasks you're doing. Audit your time, right? If I look at my Google Calendar, let me pull it up real quick. And I apologize because my phone's in grayscale, so it's not going to look as cool on here. But like on my phone, I track everything, right? So let's look at like a few days ago. So this was a day where I had like a bunch of calls. You can see all this stuff. It's all tracked in. You got to be tracking everything in your Google Calendar. And this is not even like a good day of tracking, honestly. Like everything that you do should be tracked in your Google Calendar. Do that, even just commit to a week or 2 weeks. You'll notice pretty quickly what you're doing that's taking up all your time. Use your screen time. Like look and see how much time are you actually spending on Instagram? How much time are you actually spending on TikTok? Like I fall victim to this too. And that's why I can tell you, if you're not prioritizing the business, you're really not prioritizing your life. And like, if you want to go to the next level, if you want to have a kick-ass life, you can't have like mediocre like inputs, because mediocre inputs are not going to even lead to mediocre outputs. Like inputs and outputs, everything in life is inputs and outputs. So if you want to get a top 1% input, you can't, or output, you can't be doing the things that the bottom 99% do. So that's a pretty simple concept, I would think, but most people don't understand that. And so with the law of constraints, you got to identify where the actual constraint is, right? Is it in beliefs? Is it in traits? Is it in skills? From there, figure out where the actual constraint is inside of that. So is your constraint that you're spending all your time on copywriting and you should just be outsourcing that? It's not worth your hourly rate. Like, where is the actual constraint? From there, after you find the actual constraint, it's pretty simple. You just get rid of the constraint. You focus all your attention on the money, on the things that actually bring in money. If you know that you should be doing outreach, you need to write down on a contract for yourself, like get a pen and piece of paper, take a pen and pad right now. I want you to write down outreach, 50 per day, 100 per day, 200 per day, 300 per day, however many you want to do a day. Write that down. Whatever task you need to get done every single day, write it down. Then I want you to sign it and date it at the bottom. And tear that page out of that notebook and slap it on the wall. You'll see, like, even on my refrigerator, if I'm looking at it right now, my refrigerator has two things on it. It says mastery, you can have it all. And it says net, no extra time. If you're wasting your time and you just have all this extra time just sitting there, you're not going to be successful. The most successful people in the world work a lot. They're not just lazy. And so, yeah, maybe you can get to level 8, level 9 by being lazy, but like level 10 earners are not lazy. They're always working. And so if you want to really go to the next level, you can't have any extra time. And so I think like 80% of people's bottlenecks are honestly in acquisition, that they're just either not doing good outreach, they're not doing, the right outreach, and they're not doing enough outreach. That's where everybody's problem comes down to 80% of the time. And if it's delivery, that's an easy problem to fix. But like acquisition is something that's hard, especially for growth operators. So if you're trying to acquire a client, I got other videos on my channel about how to acquire clients, and they'll teach you the skills, the beliefs, and the traits that you need. But at the end of the day, this is the law of constraints, right? You got to know it. You got to be able to understand everything has a bottleneck or a constraint. Somewhere, piece and part of that system is not functioning to where every other piece of the system can flow. And so if a system isn't flowing, you got to be able to always identify there's always a constraint. If you can always identify the constraint and fix the constraint, the system will grow infinitely. And so that's how you scale a growth operating business.